Welcome to the Australian Business Executive Podcast, where we speak with many of Australia's most influential personalities on issues of business and economic development taking place across the country. You can stay up to date with our magazines, videos and podcasts by visiting www.theabe.tv and clicking on subscribe.
Today's guest is Peter Buttigieg, founder and managing director of RMS Hospitality. Peter has been involved in the technology sector for more than 30 years, having founded RMS in the late 80s. Originally a software for insurance brokers, it expanded into caravan parks before entering the hospitality sector, where it is best known today. Peter has seen a multitude of changes in the industry, including an RMS where they've recently gone through a major redesign to move their software from a localised Windows environment to a cloud-based technology. In addition to his interests in RMS, Peter is also executive chairman and acting CEO of Aphrodite Gold, an emerging gold project he was an early investor in. Peter, thank you for joining us today.
Hi.
You've been involved in the technology sector since its infancy. What changes have you seen since you started RMS in the 80s?
Well, when I first started with RMS, when I started the company back in the 80s, PCs really were just in their very early infancy when we were really cutting over from mainframes and mini computers. So back in the 80s, PCs were just starting to be used by small businesses, unlike now where PCs have pretty much taken over. Back then, it was very hard to convince small businesses that a PC could do the kind of work they're doing now, to do all their internal admin, etc., etc.
Well, so what is RMS Hospitality and where would we see it in use?
Okay. RMS Hospitality is fundamentally involved in the accommodation industry, where we do primarily bookings for hotels, motels, caravan parks. So you wouldn't really see it as such from a retail perspective, because what our software does is pretty much run all of the functional stuff required for accommodation houses. So all the bookings, all the accounting, all the housekeeping functions, all that kind of day-to-day stuff that is involved with running motels and hotels and caravan parks, that's pretty much what our software does. And then moreover from that, we then provide now online bookings. So the retail websites that people would be familiar with, like booking.com, Expedia and all that, we provide connections from our booking system into these retail internet systems to provide that whole real-time online booking capability.
Well, what companies are using RMS Hospitality as their booking engine?
So some of the companies that would be sort of half well known in Australia would be Discovery Caravan Parks. They've got, 80, 90 odd parks around Australia now. Quest Apartments, they're once again all around Australia. Big Four Caravan Parks, Spotless Defence Bases, they use our software to do all of the accommodation management in quite a number of defence bases around Australia. Overseas, in the USA now, we've got probably the biggest caravan park operator, Sun Communities. They've got about 130 odd holiday parks around North America. And in Canada, we've got the biggest park operator there, Parkbridge. They've got something like 40 parks. And more recently, we've started doing a trial with Oaks Hotels here in Australia.
You were talking a little bit about the international use. As a software that can be used anywhere in the world, where is RMS Expansion headed?
Well, obviously we started off in Australia. We moved. Our first offshore move was to go to the UK about 8-9 years ago, and we started our expansion over there into the caravan park market, and more recently now we're moving into the hotel sector. And since moving over to the UK, we then branched out into the UAE and India. So we've got offices over there, and more recently now in the USA, North America, where we've also branched out into both the outdoor market, i.e. RV parks, etc., and the indoor market being the motel sector. So, having covered all that area, our next main expansion is going to be moving into Asia, China, that area of the world.
Well, as technological changes become faster and faster, how do you prepare your business for a rapidly changing environment?
Well, the biggest change we've really seen now in the last 5 to 10 years, obviously, is with the internet. And that's really been the biggest game changer for the last 25, 30 years, in that with PCs and Windows dominating the market during the 80s, 90s, and up until, like I said, 5, 10 years ago, things were pretty stable around the Windows PC environment. But with the advent now of the internet and cloud computing, the whole dynamics is shifting now, where rather than running software on premise, where customers are looking after their own computers and their own software and their own data and doing their own backups and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me. What's happening now is it's all moving to a cloud-based environment where everything effectively is run across the internet. And as well as supplying the software itself, the actual application software, we're now providing all the infrastructure to also run the software, so that our customers really just need to get themselves connected to the cloud, and we then take care of all the infrastructure to run the application itself. So as far as getting back to the question about keeping pace with the changing technology, the biggest change we've had to accommodate now is moving and redeveloping all of our software to run from a Windows environment into a cloud-based web browser environment. But now being in a cloud environment, we're now able to keep pace with all the new mobile technology that's happening, etc., because we've now moved into this environment that enables all this new technology to be leveraged off, if that all makes sense.
Well, my final question for you is, you're also involved in an ASX-listed gold exploration company called Aphrodite Gold. What did you learn about going through an IPO and listing on the ASX?
Well, actually, that was an interesting exercise. The main thing I really learned from that is, from a governance point of view and a business management point of view, whether a company is private or publicly listed, there really aren't a whole lot of differences in the day-to-day management. There's certainly a lot more compliance stuff with auditing, etc., but the actual business practices involved in the day-to-day management and strategic running of both a private and a public company are fairly similar. And one of the reasons I did that was to just see how difficult it would be to get involved with having a public company, just in case we, at some stage with RMS, wanted to look at moving it into the public arena, which I think at some stage we'll probably look at doing.
Well, that's all I have for you today, Peter, on RMS. Thank you very much for taking time to join us today.
Very good. No problem. Thank you.
This has been a production of the Australian Business Executive, a division of Romulus Rising Proprietary Limited. All rights reserved. You can stay up to date with the Australian Business Executive and our magazines, videos and podcasts by visiting www.theabe.tv and clicking on subscribe.